Our regular viewers know Jim Duffy of Secrets of the Eastern Shore comes here on Thursdays to tell us stories from days gone by. But today, it seems that he has something different in mind. He wants to talk about a story straight from our nightly newscast.
Yeah, a sudden influx of immigrants from a far-off land. Local government officials decide they can't handle all these newcomers, so they pack up batches of immigrants and transport them to other parts of the country, dropping them off in various cities unannounced. Sound familiar? It does, and you need to explain yourself. I mean, you are usually talking about things that...
Whoa. There's some confusion here.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about 1755, not 2024. In 1755, in Oxford, Maryland, a sloop called the Ranger sailed up the Tread Avon River. 200 people aboard. They are poverty-stricken. They are starving. Many of them are sick. None of them speak English. And the captain of that ship dropped them off at the dock, turned around, and left, completely unannounced.
Well, where did they come from?
They came from Canada,
Okay.
Nova Scotia. There was a group of French people there starting right around the time of Jamestown, early 1600s. They had gotten there. They stayed there for like 150 years, just doing their thing on the banks of Lake Fundy. And then war broke out between France and England. It was kind of a world war, but our little part of it was the French and Indian War. To make a long, complicated story very short, the English eventually decided that this little colony of French people couldn't be trusted in this war environment. So in really horrific fashion, they rounded them all up. And they shipped them off to various places. There were like 10,000 of them. They shipped them off to the Caribbean, all over British North America, the Caribbean and Philadelphia and every place. And they just dropped them off. And one of the places they dropped them off was Annapolis. And when they dropped them off at the Capitol here in Annapolis, the people in Annapolis are like, what are we supposed to do with this? And they eventually decided to divide them up all over Maryland. And 200 of them landed in Oxford unannounced.
So how did the people in Oxford react to that?
Exactly like you might expect. Which was basically, this is the government's problem. This is not our problem. What are we supposed to do with this? So they issued pleas to the government, and the government said, sorry, we got nothing. You're on your own. Now, if you were to imagine that this happens today, who would you imagine would be like the person in your community who might do the right thing? Would it be like the lady who takes care of stray cats? Would it be the couple who's always at the soup kitchen? Would it be the guy who's always building new bike lanes or hiking paths or whatever else? The guy in Oxford who came through was a really unlikely hero. His name was Henry Callister, and he was a womanizer. Got in all kinds of trouble for doing things with married women. He was a really kind of shady businessman, and he was a snob. He thought everybody in Oxford, he had just come over from England, he thought everybody in Oxford was backwoods kind of people.
So what did he do?
He too didn't like the fact that the French came. He thought it was the government's problem. He didn't like the French being there because they were on the other side of this war that was going on. But in his letters, he wrote that we cannot let their bad principles get in the way of our shared humanity. And so he started taking some into the house. He spent his own money trying to feed them. There were too many of them. There were 200. He talked a preacher into doing a special collection on Sunday. Nobody gave any money. It was terrible.
Oh my goodness.
So, but his shady businessman habit came in handy. What he decided to do was load little groups of immigrants up on a boat, and he hired a captain, and he went up the Wye River, which then and now has some of the richest estates on the Delmarva Peninsula, and he just dropped 10 or 15 people off at rich people's houses all along the way, most of them probably unannounced, created a little outrage, and yet still the rich people ended up taking them in. They fed them, they probably put them to work, and maybe their life there wasn't much better than the enslaved people who were working there. But there were only 30 people left in Oxford, and the other 170 were all being taken care of on these rich people estates, and everything worked out fine. He took some into his home. That preacher with the special collection, people took them into their home, and they stayed here for, a couple of years, maybe. Do you know where they ended up?
No.
Some of them did actually stay here. A few of them actually stayed here and their ancestors are still here today. But eventually these Fundy French who had gone all over the place kind of got word through the grapevine that they were reforming their community, and they were doing that in the swamps of Louisiana, and those people are the
Cajuns.
Wow.
So some of those Cajuns today owe their life to a cad and a womanizer and a shady businessman named Henry Callister in Oxford, Maryland.
Oh my goodness.
Go figure.
What a great story.
It is.
Thank you so much, Jim Duffy, Secrets of the Eastern Shore. We'll see you next Thursday.
Sounds great.